Good evening, dreamer. You've wandered far today, and now you find yourself at the edge of quiet, that particular stillness that lives in libraries after the world has gone to sleep. You open a heavy wooden door, and the faint smell of parchment and dust greets you, old paper breathing softly in the dark. Candles burn low. A draft stirs the corners of forgotten books. You've come, perhaps, not to read, but to listen, for every old library whispers. And tonight, it will tell its story. Long before digital screens, before printed pages, before ink met paper as we know it, there was Alexandria. Imagine dreamer. The 3rd century before the Common Era. The city stands bright on the Egyptian coast, its harbor full of ships from Greece, Persia, India. Somewhere near the royal palace rises a vast complex of marble halls, the Great Library. It is said that within its shelves rested every scroll the known world could offer. Scholars from across lands gathered there, Greeks translating Egyptian wisdom, Egyptians preserving Babylonian knowledge, mathematicians debating the shape of the earth, poets reciting by lamplight. The air smelled of oil and papyrus, the faint temps of ink made from soot and gum. Thousands of scrolls lined wooden shelves, rolled manuscripts containing philosophies, dramas, and treatises on stars and medicine. Imagine the quiet hum of such a place, dreamer. The soft scraping of red pens, the rustle of linen robes as thinkers moved between columns. A world before machines, yet already rich in memory. Knowledge was precious then, fragile as a single sheet of papyrus. To copy one text took hours, so Metim's days one, scribe tracing another's careful hand. And yet, they did so tirelessly, knowing that each word carried the weight of civilizations. The Library of Alexandria was not only a building, it was an idea, that all human thought could be gathered, preserved, and shared. The scholars there believed that wisdom was a bridge between peoples within those marble walls. Greek, Egyptian, Persian, and Indian minds met and mingled. Mathematics joined astronomy. Poetry spoke to philosophy. It was, perhaps, the first attempt at a global conversation. But even the grandest dreams are delicate. Fires struck Alexandria more than once, the first perhaps during Julius Caesar's time, when war reached the harbor. Flames licked through warehouses where scrolls were stored. Later, centuries after, other disasters followed, some by accident, some by neglect, some by deliberate destruction. No one knows exactly when the Great Library was lost, only that one day it was no longer there. And yet, the whisper of Alexandria did not fade. Like embers caught on wind, its spirit traveled. Many of the works once studied there survived in fragments copied, translated, carried by scholars to other lands. The dream of preserving knowledge moved with them. When the library's halls were gone, a new kind of quiet began, the quiet of small scriptoria in monasteries, where monks labored through cold winters to keep memory alive. But before we go there, linger for a moment, dreamer. Picture the last scholar leaving Alexandria at dusk. The harbor glows with light. The sea murmurs. In his arms, he carries a small chest of scrolls, a remnant of centuries of thought. He does not yet know that he is saving the spark that will one day rekindle across continents. You can almost hear the pages whisper, even now. They say, "Remember us." The flames of Alexandria may have dimmed, dreamer, but they did not extinguish knowledge. The whisper of old pages drifted northward, across deserts, through mountains, carried by traders, pilgrims, and the curious. And in the centuries that followed, when empires fell and roads turned to ruin, it was in the hush of monasteries that human memory found refuge. Imagine Europe in the early Middle Ages. Kingdoms rise and crumble. Roads once carved by Rome are overgrown. The world feels smaller, dimmer. Yet on the edges of forests and by cold rivers, stone buildings rise. Abbeys and monasteries, where men and women devote their lives not only to prayer, but to preservation. Inside those thick walls, the air smells of beeswax and parchment. The scriptorium, the writing room, glows with lamplight. Rows of desks stand beneath arched windows that let in a pale ribbon of morning sun. The monks, wrapped in coarse robes, bend low over their work. A quill dips into ink made from oak galls and iron. Slowly, patiently, letter by letter, a book is born. Listen, dreamer. Scratch, pause, breathe, whisper. Each stroke of ink is a heartbeat in the long story of human thought. They copied not only scriptures, but ancient texts that somehow survived the fall of Rome. Works of Aristotle, Galen, Virgil. Many of these monks cannot read Greek, yet they copy faithfully, knowing that the meaning will live on for others. Outside, winds howl across frozen fields. But inside, there is warmth, not from fire, but from purpose. The monks work through winter and summer, through famine and plague, preserving words whose authors they will never meet. They believe they are tending to something sacred, the memory of humanity itself. In Ireland, in the monasteries of Iona and Clonmacnoise, illuminated manuscripts bloom the Book of Kelth. The Lindisfarne Gospels, gold leaf catches the light, turning scripture into art. Each page becomes a prayer in color and curve, where letters twine with animals, vines, and stars. These are not mere copies. They are acts of devotion, beauty born from silence. Sometimes, dreamer, you can imagine the moment when a monk pauses, quill raised, eyes weary. He gazes through a small window at the gray sky. He cannot know that, centuries later, someone will still admire the page he just finished. Yet perhaps, somewhere deep inside, he senses that what he copies tonight will outlive him, will whisper still when his name is long forgotten. Meanwhile, across the Mediterranean, in the grand libraries of Baghdad and Damascus, other scholars work under a different light. The House of Wisdom gathers texts from Greece, India, and Persia. Translators like Al-Kindi, Al-Farabi, and Ibn Sina bring ancient science and philosophy into Arabic, giving them new life. For a time, the torch of knowledge glows brighter there than anywhere else on earth. And though Europe sleeps, those words on medicine, astronomy, mathematics will one day return, carried again across the sea, ready to spark another age of learning. So the whisper never stopped, dreamer. It simply changed hands. From scribe to scribe, from script to script, it moved through the ages, steady as breath. When you turn the page of a book today, that faint rustle you hear is the echo of those patient hands, those flickering candles that vow made long ago in the quiet of stone halls. Dreamer, imagine the 15th century, a time when the world, long cloaked in shadow, begins to stir and stretch toward the light once more. The monasteries have kept the flame alive, but now new hands reach for it. Cities hum with trade and craft. Scholars travel once again between lands, and in their luggage, tucked carefully beside their robes and coins, they carry books. In Florence, in Venice, in the quiet halls of Oxford and Paris, whispers begin to rise, whispers of old ideas. Ancient Greek texts return from the East, newly translated. Aristotle speaks again. Plato's dialogues are read aloud under painted ceilings. A sense of awakening spreads through Europe, soft at first, then bright and unstoppable. It is the Renaissance, the rebirth of learning. Picture a small study in Florence. The light of early morning falls on shelves crowded with the air smells of ink and vellum. A man named Cosimo de' Medici stands before a scribe, handing him a newly arrived manuscript, a treasure brought from Constantinople. It is Plato's Timaeus, unseen in the West for 1,000 years. Cosimo smiles, for he knows he is holding a piece of the past, a seed that will grow again. Everywhere, libraries are being born in palaces, universities, churches, but something else stirs. Dreamer, a machine, a strange contraption of wood and metal that will change the whisper forever. Around 1450. In Mainz, Johannes Gutenberg begins his quiet revolution. With movable type, he invents the printing press. Until now, books were copied one by one, letter by letter. A single volume could take months, even years, to complete. But now, pages can be pressed and multiplied. Knowledge begins to travel faster than ever before. The whisper of old libraries becomes a chorus. Within a few decades, presses hum across Europe. The first printed Bible emerges, its pages precise and clean. Soon, other works follow. Aristotle, Euclid, Dante, Chaucer. Ideas once bound to monasteries spread into cities, markets, homes. Books become companions, not luxuries. Imagine, dreamer, the feeling of holding one of those early printed books, the texture of the paper, thick and rough beneath your fingertips, the scent of oil and metal, the letters, black and sharp, marching neatly across the page. It is still a new kind of magic, the hum of machinery replacing the hush of quills, but the purpose is the same: to preserve, to share, to remember. In the same century, Constantinople falls to the Ottomans, and with its fall, scholars carrying ancient Greek texts flee westward. They bring with them knowledge once thought lost: astronomy, philosophy, medicine. In their trunks are fragments of the Library of Alexandria's lost dream. Those fragments find new homes in Florence, in Rome, in Paris. The whisper circles back, renewed. The great libraries of this new age are different, not built only for the few, but for the many who thirst for learning. The Vatican Library opens its vaults. The Bodleian Library in Oxford begins to grow. In France, at the Sorbonne, students crowd into candlelit halls, sharing books and ideas. The hum of curiosity fills the air again. And with every copy printed, the world grows a little less dark. The whisper becomes a murmur of conversation, across languages, across oceans. Ideas leap from shelf to shelf, mind to mind. Dreamer, if you close your eyes, you can almost hear it, the turning of 1,000 pages in 1,000 rooms. A sound like rainfall, like breath. The age of silence is ending. The age of voices, preserved, multiplied, eternal, has begun. Dreamer, the Renaissance has awakened the thirst for knowledge, and now that thirst builds monuments. Across Europe, rulers, scholars, and cities begin to raise great libraries, cathedrals of thought, where the memory of humankind is not just stored, but celebrated. Imagine walking into one of these new temples of learning. The air is cool, touched by the scent of wood, polish, and parchment. Light filters through tall windows, casting long golden stripes across the floor. Shelves reach upward, climbing toward carved ceilings. Every sound, a cough, a footstep, a page turning, echoes softly, as if the building itself were breathing. In England, the Bodleian Library takes shape. At Oxford, its founder, Sir Thomas Bodley, dreams of a place that will hold every book in the kingdom. In 1602, the library opens, and for the first time, scholars step into its quiet halls. There are long tables of oak, inkpots neatly arranged, globes resting by the windows. Students bend over manuscripts, their candle flames swaying like small stars. The Bodleian becomes not just a collection of books, but a symbol that learning belongs to all who seek it. Across the sea, in Spain, King Philip II builds El Escorial, a vast complex of stone and silence, part palace, part monastery, part library. Its shelves gleam with manuscripts bound in leather and gold. The ceilings above are painted with the muses of knowledge, grammar, rhetoric, astronomy, music. Sunlight spills in thin beams across the polished floor, touching spines that hold the thoughts of centuries. And farther north, in Prague and Vienna, in Paris and Rome, libraries bloom like gardens of order. Each shelf is a path, each book a leaf in the grand tree of memory. The whisper that began in the papyrus rolls of Alexandria now hums through corridors of marble. These were places not only to read, but to be. Scholars came not just to study, but to listen to the rhythm of thought flowing through time. They walked past rows of globes, maps, instruments, each marking humanity's effort to understand the world. The world itself began to change, science, philosophy, and art entwining like vines. Dreamer, imagine yourself standing in one of those halls late at night. The torches have burned low, and you are alone. The shelves tower above you, their shadows deep. You reach out to trace the spine of a book. The leather is smooth, worn by centuries of curious hands. You pull it gently free. It creaks, just slightly, like a voice clearing its throat before it speaks. You sit, open it, and the faint scent of time rises old ink, dust, candle wax, human touch. The words stare up at you from the page, letters hand-carved or pressed, each one a spark from minds long gone. You read, slowly, as if the world outside no longer exists. In those grand libraries, Dreamer, humanity's oldest desire, became clear, to outlast itself, to be remembered, to speak to the future across the distance of years. But not all voices were heard equally. Many books were forbidden, censored, hidden behind locked doors. The same halls that sheltered knowledge also guarded it fiercely. Librarians became keepers, not just of books, but of secrets. Still, the whisper endured. It seeped through cracks, crossed oceans, slipped into pockets and trunks. And soon, the age of exploration would carry it farther than anyone had ever dreamed across these two lands where new libraries would rise, holding stories and languages yet unknown to Europe's shelves. Dreamer, the 16th and 17th centuries unfold like sails in the wind. The world grows wider, and the whisper of old libraries crosses the ocean, carried in the trunks of explorers, scholars, and missionaries. Books fragile, heavy, precious, become seeds scattered across continents. Picture the harbor of Seville, around the year 1500. Ships wait in the dawn mist, their decks stacked with crates. Inside one of them, among the spices and silks, lies a small chest of books, volumes of scripture, philosophy, astronomy. They are bound for lands where no library yet exists. To the people who packed them, these books are as important as food and water nourishment for the mind, a light for an unknown world. When those ships reach the Americas, the books are unpacked and placed carefully upon rough-hewn tables. In Mexico City, the first libraries of the New World are born in monasteries, universities, and missions. One of them, the Library of San Agustin, becomes a beacon of learning in the 16th century, filled with Latin manuscripts, maps, and chronicles of strange new lands. Farther south, in Lima, Peru, the Royal University gathers a growing collection, theology beside natural science, astronomy beside exploration. Each book, there is a link between continents, between the ancient world and the new. In the northern colonies, libraries begin humbly. Picture a small wooden room in Boston, 1656. A few shelves hold volumes of law, history, and scripture. They belong to the Boston Athenaeum, one of the first institutions in America to welcome readers beyond clergy and scholars. Later, in Philadelphia, a man named Benjamin Franklin founds the library company, a subscription library, open to anyone who pays a small fee. Knowledge, once guarded by the powerful, starts to become shared property. Dreamer, imagine the feeling of walking into one of these early libraries. The walls are plain, the candles few, but the air is full of quiet excitement. The people who come here, sailors, merchants, school teachers, have never before had access to so many books. Each volume they open is a door into another world. The whisper of old libraries now speaks with a new accent. It no longer belongs only to scholars in marble halls. It belongs to readers in plain shirts and worn shoes. It spreads through the colonies, into farmhouses and classrooms, into the hands of those who had never held books before. By the 18th century, libraries become symbols of freedom as much as knowledge. In a world debating revolution and rights, books carry not just learning, but ideas, bold, dangerous, liberating. The printed word becomes a spark, and libraries, once places of quiet reflection, become engines of change. In 1800, in a new capital called Washington, the Library of Congress is founded. It begins modestly, a few thousand volumes, but its mission is vast: to collect the wisdom of the world for the people of a new nation. Over the years, it will grow into one of the largest libraries on earth, a testament to the idea that knowledge belongs to all. Still, dreamer, through all this expansion, the heart of the library remains the same: silence, respect, and the slow turning of pages. Whether beneath marble domes or wooden rafters, the same soft whisper endures. Even across oceans, even through wars and revolutions, the sound of a book opening, that quiet flutter, remains unchanged. It is the sound of continuity, of trust in tomorrow. Dreamer, the 19th century arrives, not like a dawn, but like a slow, rising hum. The world begins to move faster. Carriages replaced by trains, quills replaced by presses, candles replaced by gaslight. Yet amid the noise of progress, libraries remain sanctuaries of stillness. Picture London in 1850. The streets are crowded, the air thick with coal smoke, but behind stone walls and iron gates, in rooms warmed by low firelight, readers sit at long oak tables. This is the age of the great public libraries, quiet havens, built for a restless world. One of the grandest among them is the British Museum Reading Room. Beneath its soaring dome, thousands of scholars and dreamers gather. Karl Marx sits there for years, scribbling his ideas about society. Virginia Woolf's father, Leslie Stephen, pores over dusty and later, so will Orwell, Wells, and countless others. The silence in that room is not empty. It is alive, vibrating softly with thought. You can almost hear the scratch of pens, the rustle of turning pages, the sigh of discovery. At the same time, dreamer, another revolution unfolds, one of accessibility. Until now, libraries were often private or institutional, their treasures locked away behind formality. But now, in industrial cities across Europe and America, something new is born. The public library in Manchester in 1852. The first free public library opens its doors. Anyone may enter, rich or poor, worker or scholar. It is a radical idea that knowledge is a right, not a privilege. Soon, more cities follow. Glasgow, Birmingham, Liverpool. Each builds its own library, each a beacon against ignorance. Across the Atlantic, a young Scottish immigrant named Andrew Carnegie arrives in America with little more than hope. Decades later, he becomes one of the wealthiest men in the world. And with that fortune, he does something remarkable. He builds libraries, over 2,000 of them, from New York to Nairobi. Small brick buildings with tall windows rise, each carrying a simple inscription: free to the people. Think of that phrase, dreamer, free to the people. In it lies the quiet revolution of the 19th century, that learning should not depend on class, birth, or wealth. Meanwhile, the architecture of libraries changes to the world of stone cloisters gives way to cast iron staircases, gas lamps, and glass domes that let in daylight. Rows upon rows of books now glow like embers in the modern age. The smell is still the same: leather, paper, ink. But the atmosphere feels different, more hopeful, more open. Reading rooms become social equalizers. In them, a factory worker might sit beside a professor, each lost in their own page. A seamstress might read a novel about faraway lands. A young boy might discover poetry that will shape his heart forever. And amid this quiet revolution, women step into the story. Once forbidden from most libraries, they now enter freely, read freely, write freely. In Boston, the Athenaeum opens its doors to women. In London, the newly founded National Library welcomes female readers. Some come in modest bonnets, some in bold dresses, but all share the same luminous gaze, the gaze of those who know the power of a book. Imagine the soft click of shoes on tiled floors, the scent of rain on city windows, the rhythmic ticking of a clock on the wall. Outside, trains thunder past. Inside, only whispers. The contrast feels sacred. This century teaches the world that libraries are not relics. They are living organisms, growing with civilization itself. As cities expand, so do shelves. As populations rise, so do riadas. Books multiply like stars in a new kind of sky. Dreamer, perhaps you can picture yourself in that time, seated beneath a tall, arched ceiling, reading by gaslight, hearing the soft creak of the librarian's cart. Maybe you would copy down a line from a poet, or trace your finger over the edge of a map. Perhaps you would glance up at the other readers and realize you are all connected, quiet travelers, journeying through words. And even as the century draws toward its close, the whisper of old libraries remains unchanged. The air of curiosity hums softly, like a pulse under the noise of progress. Dreamer, the 20th century begins with confidence. Cities gleam with electricity, trains and telegraphs crisscross the world, and the printed word seems unstoppable. Newspapers multiply, books pour from the presses, and librarias, those cathedrals of calm, find themselves busier than ever before. Picture a morning in 1910, in the reading hall of the New York Public Library. The marble floors echo softly with footsteps. The ceiling rises like the sky itself, painted with clouds. Sunlight falls across long tables, where readers sit shoulder to shoulder. Immigrants learning English, architects sketching plans, poets searching for a phrase that feels true. The whisper here is vast, but steady. Like the tide, yet, dreamer, even the tide can turn. The world soon trembles. The Great War erupts, and suddenly, the silence of libraries is broken by the noise of an age that cannot rest. In Europe, ancient libraries close their doors as young men march to the front. Some libraries burn, others become shelters or hospitals. In Louvain, Belgium, a library centuries old is set aflame in 1914. Hundreds of thousands of men vanish in hours works of science, philosophy, art, gone to ash. The world mourns not only the lives lost, but the words lost too. Because books, dreamer, are a kind of memory. When Tay born something human burns with them. And yet, even amid ruin, the whisper endures. Soldiers carry small books in their pockets, poems, letters, prayers. Libraries rebuild. After the war, in 1924, the new University Library of Louvain rises again, its shelves a symbol of resilience. As the decades pass, a different kind of war begins, quieter, more invisible. The battle for information. Telephones hum, radios speak, typewriters clatter. The world becomes faster, noisier, smaller. But the library holds its breath and listens. It adapts. In 1930s Paris, libraries glow with the warmth of modern light. Scholars sit beside travelers, artists beside dreamers. In Moscow, vast reading rooms fill with students learning the language of science and machinery. In Tokyo, archives stretch to hold centuries of cultural heritage, carefully preserved even through the tremors of war. Then minus 1939. The Second World War ignites again. Libraries fall silent under the wail of sirens. Books are hidden in basements, smuggled in carts, buried beneath gardens. Librarians, quiet heroes risk their lives to save much. In Warsaw, they hide Jewish archives beneath the roof. In Florence, they move medieval texts by night. Dreamer, imagine a young librarian, lantern in hand, wrapping a centuries-old manuscript in cloth. Outside, bombs fall. Inside, she whispers a promise to the book. You will live. After the war, the world rebuilds once more, and the whisper grows louder, stronger. New libraries rise from the ruins, built not only to house books, but to heal minds. In Hiroshima, in Berlin, in London, readers return to their tables. The act of reading becomes an act of defiance, proof that knowledge cannot be destroyed. The 1950s and 60s bring a new rhythm. The sound of paper mingles with the hum of machines. Libraries begin to catalog their treasures with early computers. Cards and wooden drawers give way to blinking lights and magnetic tapes. It is a strange marriage, ink and electricity, but it works. And yet, even as the world modernizes, the spirit of the library remains ancient. The librarian still walks softly. The pages still whisper. The reader still bends their head in quiet reverence. By the 1970s, libraries become more democratic than ever. Children's sections bloom with color and laughter. Traveling libraries. Little vans filled with books roll into villages and deserts, carrying stories to those who have never seen one. The whisper expands into the airwaves and onto film reels, spreading further than any scroll or codex ever could. But something else is coming. Dreamer. Something invisible, powerful, unstoppable. Wires, signals, circuits, a digital pulse that hums beneath everything. The whisper will soon meet the hum of data. The world is about to change again. Dreamer, the late 20th century, opens its doors to a new kind of silence. One that hums with hidden energy. The air itself seems to vibrate with invisible messages, carrying information faster than any messenger or printing press ever could. Libraries, those temples of stillness, stand at the threshold of this transformation. Rows of card catalogs, those wooden chests of tiny drawers, begin to disappear. In their place come glowing monitors, green letters blinking on dark screens. To some, it feels like the end of an era. To others, it is a picture the year 1983. A student in a quiet corner of the University of Illinois types commands into a computer terminal. The machine hums, and suddenly, across the world, another computer responds. The ARPANET ancestor of the internet links knowledge in a way never seen before. A library without walls is beginning to take shape. At first, the change is subtle. Librarians learn new languages, not of Latin or Greek, but of code and systems. Catalogs are digitized, pages are scanned, and soon, databases stretch further than any shelf could ever reach. Information that once took hours to find can now be summoned in seconds. The old whisper of paper becomes a new kind of sound, a soft electronic murmur, the quiet pulse of data. But in this transformation, Dreamer, there is also fear. Some wonder, will the book survive? Will the soft rustle of pages vanish into static? Will the library, that sacred refuge, become obsolete? The answer, whispered by time itself, is no. Because the library is not only a building or a collection, it is a promise. A promise that knowledge should endure in whatever form the world requires. In 1995, the first online public libraries begin to appear. Projects like Gutenberg and Perseus start digitizing old texts. Thousands of them. Works once locked away in fragile bindings are reborn as pixels, free to all who can read a screen. The whisper of Alexandria's scrolls now travels through cables, under oceans, into living rooms and cafes. Dreamer. Imagine that, a reader in Cairo exploring Aristotle's words at midnight. Another in Buenos Aires, studying medieval poetry before dawn. The same knowledge, separated by continents, shared in the same quiet moment. As the new millennium dawns, libraries embrace both worlds. The smell of paper still lingers. The creak of wooden shelves still comforts. But beside them now stand glowing screens. Students scroll and search, but they still fall silent, still linger, still listen. And librarians, those keepers of calm, become guides once more. They help travelers navigate a vast digital ocean. They teach that information is not the same as wisdom, that knowing how to find something is not the same as understanding it. In this new age, the whisper becomes something universal. The sound of data centers humming, servers cooling, millions of books stored as light. But even now, Dreamer, in the deepest digital vault, there is silence. You cannot hear the noise of billions of words being read. You can only feel the weight of it, like gravity. And yet, as the internet expands, so does the need for something human. A place to gather, to pause, to breathe among words. So modern libraries reinvent themselves. They become spaces of connection, study rooms, art exhibits, storytelling corners, digital workshops. The old hush remains, but it is joined by the quiet buzz of creation. Even in the age of screens, people still come seeking the same peace. They sit between shelves or beneath skylights, laptops open beside some read, some dream, some simply rest. And outside the city pulses, full of sound, but inside, the whisper of old libraries still floats, soft and steady, unbroken. Dreamer, imagine standing before a modern library. Perhaps the shimmering walls of the Seattle Central Library, all glass angles and sunlight, or the soft curves of the Bibliotheca Alexandrina, reborn on the shores where its ancient ancestor once stood. These are not fortresses of stone, but sanctuaries of transparency, open, luminous, alive. You walk inside, and the first thing you notice is the quiet, not silence, exactly, but balance. The soft blend of murmured conversation, footsteps on polished floors, the gentle clatter of keys. Light pours in from high windows, illuminating shelves that seem to stretch into the horizon. The books are still here, dreamer, thousands upon thousands of them. Their spines gleam like tiny doors waiting to be opened. But now, beside them, rows of screens glow softly. People read on tablets, headphones in, completely still. Somewhere in the corner, a group of students collaborates over a shared document projected on a screen. Somewhere else, a child listens to a story being read aloud in both English and her native tongue. The library has changed shape, but not soul. Today's libraries are not only houses of books, they are houses of humanity. They welcome everyone. The curious, the lost, the lonely, the eager, the tired. They are one of the last public places where you can sit without paying, where you can think without hurry, where silence is not emptiness, but respect. In Helsinki, Finland, stands Udi, the library of the people. It glows with warmth through Arctic nights. Inside, you'll find not just shelves, but 3D printers, music studios, sewing machines, places to build, create, express. It is a reminder that libraries have always been about access, not restriction. In this age, access means more than books. It means tools, knowledge, and opportunity. In Singapore, the National Library rises above the city skyline, its walls covered in greenery, its spaces blending seamlessly with gardens. There, people read surrounded by nature, the rustle of pages mingling with the soft hum of leaves. Dreamer, every new library echoes an ancient promise, that knowledge belongs to everyone, and that silence is not an absence of sound, but a presence of peace. And as libraries evolve, so too does the idea of preservation. Massive digital archives now safeguard humanity's memory. The Internet Archive, for instance, preserving billions of web pages, books, and songs. It is a new kind of Alexandria, floating in cyberspace. If a library of stone once burned, this one flickers eternally in the cloud. Still, for all our progress, we find ourselves returning to the simplest ritual, sitting quietly with words. The modern library invites both stillness and connection. You can stream an ancient manuscript from your phone, yet still choose to visit your local library. Not for information, but for atmosphere, for presence, for calm. Dreamer, maybe you've noticed. Libraries, in every age, mirror our hopes. The ancient scrolls of Alexandria spoke of wonder. The medieval codices spoke of devotion. The Renaissance tomes spoke of rediscovery. The industrial reading rooms spoke of equality. And the glass libraries of today, they speak of unity. They invite us all to sit beneath the same light. In them, time folds in on itself. A child reading a picture book shares the same peace as a monk copying a manuscript centuries ago. The hum of a computer blends with the whisper of turning pages. It is as if every reader, libino orgone, breathes in unison. And though our world grows louder with notifications, advertisements, endless scrolling, libraries remain steadfast. They remind us that, to learn, we must sometimes be still. In their silence, dreamer, the mind rests. The heart slows. The world, for a moment, feels whole again. Dreamer, every library that has ever existed, from the firelit halls of Alexandria to the shining glass towers of today, is part of something greater, something invisible. It is not made of stone, paper, or even light. It exists in the quiet corners of the human soul. Picture it, a vast space beyond time. There are no walls, no ceilings, only a soft glow, like the inside of a dream. Shelves stretch into infinity, yet each one feels familiar, like the memory of a place you be unsalubed. The air hums gently with whispers, not of ghosts, but of thoughts. Every idea ever written, every poem ever imagined, drifts here in peace. You walk slowly down one of its endless aisles. The books you pass are warm to the touch, and when you open one, it does not speak aloud, it remembers. It remembers the hands that held it, the eyes that lingered on its pages, the minds it changed. Here lies the scroll of Alexandria, once lost to flame, glowing softly as if reborn from its own ashes. Nearby, a medieval manuscript hums faintly, the ink of monks still shimmering under invisible light. A printed pamphlet from a 19th century reading room rustles quietly beside a sleek digital tablet, each holding equal dignity. There are no barriers here, no language too old, no technology too new. The ancient and the modern coexist like breath and heartbeat. In this eternal library, dreamer, there are no locked doors, no overdue slips, no do not touch signs. Every reader is welcome. Every thought is safe. And in this silence, deeper than sleep, deeper than time, you realize that libraries were never just buildings. They were reflections of us. For as long as humans have wondered, we have gathered our wonder into words. We built temples to them, guarded them, shared them, lost them, rebuilt them again. Every burned manuscript, every rediscovered text, every glowing screen, all are threads in the same endless story. The whisper you followed all this way was never just the sound of paper. It was the murmur of curiosity, the sound the mind makes when it wants to understand the world. And though the shapes of our libraries will keep changing from scrolls to books, from books to bytes, and beyond, the whisper will remain. It will live wherever someone pauses, breathes deeply, and opens a story. Even now, as you listen, your mind has become a kind of library. Each memory, each image, each word you've heard tonight has found its quiet shelf within you. Somewhere deep inside, the librarians of your thoughts are gently placing them in order, keeping them safe for when you need them again. So rest, dreamer, rest knowing that the story never truly ends. Somewhere a child is turning the first page of a book. Somewhere, an old scholar is closing one for the last time. And between them flows the same soft, timeless whisper, the voice of all who have ever loved to learn. When you wake, the world will still hum with noise, but if you listen closely, beneath it all, you'll hear it again. The whisper of old libraries, steady and eternal. It is a whisper that says, you are part of something vast, gentle, and beautifully human. You always have been. So sleep now, dreamer. Let the pages close, the library lights dim, and somewhere in the silence of your dreams, another story begins.